and welcome you back again to another exciting episode of our show, AI Knowledge Hub, with me, Anisha Siri from India. And we have an amazing special guest today who is an entrepreneur, an academician, a beautiful poetic content writer with brilliance in her words, and it's none other than our dear Dr. Ashley Fico from New York, USA. I'm really glad to have you here, Ashley. Really happy to have you here. And let's start the session with your self introduction and your journey. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm just really excited to be here, and you couldn't have written a nicer, more generous introduction. So thank you so much for that. I'm really excited for our conversation. So I guess just to give a little bit of background. So my training is in academics. So I got a PhD in communication. I focused in health communication, and then I minored in statistics. And then thereafter, I spent a lot of time doing research. So for about the next 7 years, I really focused on researching interpersonal communication in the context of health. So specifically, I did a lot of work looking at communication in the context of organ donation. So at the end of life, how did organ procurement coordinators or requesters go into the hospital and talk with families about the option for donation. From there, I was doing a little bit of teaching at the time, and I found myself really looking forward to those days. So I ended up transitioning over to a different school that focused a bit more heavily on teaching. So that's where I am now. So I teach courses in biostatistics and in health research, health behavior theory. And then, can I just say, Michael just popped up in the chat and said, this is already so fresh. Thank you for using my favorite Mean Girls line.
Hi, Michael. Yeah.
I love it. So from there, kind of the next really big shift in my career was, although I'm still in academics, I really was interested in entrepreneurial efforts. And so my brother and I started talking about, well, what was something we could really create together? And so we ended up launching a business called InnoQuests, and we have a mobile app. App is also called Inaquest. Hopefully it should be launching late this summer, early fall. And basically what it does is it transforms the experience of touring a city into something that's a lot more like an escape room. So viewers, or players rather, buy a ticket and they are immersed in a story, and then they move from place to place in their city. And at each location, they have another clue to unlock, and that can only be done by exploring the world around them. So it's really meant to be this immersive experience where you're kind of in a story, you're immersed in this journey, but you're actually exploring and connecting with the real world while you do it.
Okay. My God, you had a great career transition. And everybody will be scared of this career transition, but you have a great journey, Ashley. It is really inspiring to hear your career journey. And we have Michelle here. Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Yes. So, yeah. So, today we are going to have an interaction, an integration of AI with the entrepreneur and the academic side. And before that, I want to give an introduction about what a domain knowledge is and what a domain expert is. As we already know, like domain knowledge and domain expert, they are the domain expert is a key role who plays while building an AI system. And from the domain expert, we extract the domain knowledge for building the AI system. So, for example, if I have to build an AI system for finance stream, I have to go to a domain expert who is really good at finance. So let's say in our connections, I think we have one of the great finance advisor, Luis Colombo. So if we want, we can go to him and get the knowledge extraction about finance, and then I'll build AI system on it. So here, what knowledge I'm extracting from Mr. Luis Colombo is the domain knowledge, and he is the domain expert. So they play a key role in building an AI system. Today, in our episode, we have our domain expert, Dr. Ashley, who will take us through step-by-step approach of the 5 I's of AI. So that is ideate, invest and incorporate, and integrate and instigate. So she will take us to the step-by-step approach, and let us dive into the first I of artificial intelligence, that is ideate. And before that, here we have again Lisa here, and
Hi, Lisa.
so she was like, "Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends." Yeah, we are from different time zones.
Exactly. All over the world today.
Yes. So yeah. So we will start with the first section, that is ideate, and that is mapped to the knowledge base of the AI system. So knowledge base is where we have all the ideas together in the forms of rules. So we have to extract knowledge from the domain expert and then feed it into the knowledge base. So in this section, she will take us to the journey of how she generates idea, and how she had so many different ideas in different careers, and we will have a good look on it. So here you go. You can tell us about the idea generations you do, and we can extract the knowledge from that.
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, I have to say I really love the way that you lay this all out. Like when we had our drafting session yesterday, I got even more excited because you make this so accessible for everybody. And I see it in your post too, where you can take a topic that we all know and understand, like something like personal growth and development, and then you apply this model to it. And by doing that, you really help us learn something about AI. So I just think that's really cool. And I think we all benefit from that process. So for me, in terms of the ideate stage, I think it's really about curiosity, right? That would be the first thing I would say. So one thing I would say is that in order to create, we have to consume. So for example, if I have students who are struggling with writing, they have a hard time creating, a journal article, I always say, you need to go read more. Like you have to see what else is out there and what other people are doing before you can add to it. So I think curiosity is a really important thing. The second thing I think is always asking the question kind of, how can I add more to this, right? Like knowledge is always growing. We know that. And so I think that we can look at any area and really ask, how can I make this better or different or use it in a different context? So for me, I think those are kind of the questions and processes that drive where I come up with ideas. Kind of the more tangible side of that, I guess, is really thinking about like just opening myself up to different experiences. So I always kind of tell this story. When my brother and I first started down the path of creating this mobile app, we would routinely have what we'd call Sunday Fun Day, which was like we'd take one Sunday every month and we would basically go out in the community and try something new. So it could be a sushi rolling class, it could be a ropes course, it could be an escape room, it could be a scavenger hunt. And with each of those experiences, I think I was just naturally kind of thinking about, okay, well, what more can I add? What else do we need? Because we were always looking for what's that next activity. And so kind of out of that process, really, Inaquest was one of the things that emerged. Like we had seen the fact that there were scavenger hunt apps that would take people through cities. But as they took them through cities, it was more, you'd receive kind of historic information and then you'd stop and you'd do a silly task, like you'd take a picture of yourself and then you'd move on to the next location. But it really didn't have to do with kind of immersing yourself in a story or in a city. So to me, it was kind of that experience and asking myself that question that helped us kind of generate that idea. Um, the other thing I was thinking about here, because I know when you and I did our drafting session yesterday, we were talking about kind of my transition from this academic life I've had to entrepreneurship. And I think there's also some interesting things maybe to be pulled from that. So one of the things I've come up against is a lot of people seem to think that if you are in academics, that you kind of need to stay there, that you have skills that are only good in that ivory tower, so to speak. And that just isn't true, right? I mean, you have a ton of skills. They've been applied in a particular context, but you can use them elsewhere. So for me, as we started into this journey, I think part of what I was doing was also really trying to refine what were the skills that I had. Like we could go on a very fine grain level and we could say something like, okay, I know how to write persuasive arguments. I know how to locate literature. I know how to analyze data. I know how to run an experiment. But I think then we could also kind of say, what are the core dimensions there that would really help me moving forward? And so like this, I think, parallels to a really great post you made about data reduction techniques, right? And you talked about how we have all this information and kind of how do we distill it down to what we're going to put into our system. And so for me, it was recognizing like, okay, what are these key skills I have from all this academic experience that are going to benefit me later on in entrepreneurship? So for me, it was things like grant writing, research, communication, storytelling. And then I think you can take those things and they're this set of skills that you can use to kind of refine all of the ideas that you have.
Wow, that is really great, Ashley. I really like the way you just split it into the points very clearly and distinctly. Like, for example, the first one you told about the curiosity, and then you told about the exposure, and you just touched upon how you generated idea when you changed from the academic side to the entrepreneurship, and how we incorporated puzzles into it. It's really interesting to know that. And the best part is how we integrated the skills, how we bought the blended version of the academic side and the entrepreneurship, who all where we fail to do that, because if we are in one career, we'll be sticking to that, maybe due to the pressure from the society or something like that, or due to ourselves. It's we who limits ourselves. And when I think of this, I think of Michelle blog, which she put it in the recently about a limitless, being limitless. It was really nice. So the way you integrated all these skills was really amazing, and we will elaborate in that on the section 4, integration. And so this forms a knowledge base. So we have rules here, like curiosity plays a key role here, and next one is about the exposure we have, and next one, how she formulated the questions of how I can integrate my skills from entrepreneurship and academics. How can I integrate? So those questions forms the key of the knowledge base for the entrepreneur as well as the academic who wants to have a blend on this. So if anybody wants to build AI system on this, they should formulate these basic questions like curiosity, exposure, integration of skills, and then we have the questions on how we can integrate those things. So these form the core part of the knowledge base. And next we are going to the second section. Shall we move on to the second section?
Sure.
Yes. So yeah. So we have before that we have
That's my dad. Hi.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. And we have Michelle again telling like limitless. Yes.
Yes.
So yeah. So we'll move on to the section 2. It is about invest and incorporate. So whenever we formulate some idea, we have to invest our energy, our time, or anything on tangible or non-tangible things to make that idea into a lively concept or lively thing so that everybody can access it. And then we have to incorporate some process in it. Each person has a unique process to follow, and this process changes as per the outcome. And but initially we have to formulate some incorporation process to make an idea into an outcome. So this is mapped to the inference engine, where we make the interpretations which are available in the knowledge base. So in the knowledge base, we have the core parts, whichever we formulated through the ideation process. Those core parts will be interpreted by the inference engine. So this inference engine will interpret all the knowledge available in the knowledge base and then make some decisions or conclusions or some errors also which can be rectified. So there is a debugging process also. There is a success process also in the inference engine stage. So invest and incorporate is mapped to inference engine. So let's see what we have in this inference engine by the experiences of our domain expert.
All right. So, as we were talking about this one yesterday, I was thinking about the inference engine and really how the fact that it has rules, right? So that we have all of this data coming in, and then we have to figure out what to do next. And so, kind of in our process, part of that was initially when my brother and I started talking about having a business together, we had so many ideas. I mean, probably due a lot to me and my drive for curiosity. Like, you know, I was just coming up with crazy thing after crazy thing and wanting to implement them all, and you can't, right? So part of, I think, what happened in that process is we had to start applying rules to like what was really going to be useful for us to do. And so kind of two things that I think played into that were first recognizing the talents that we had. So I might come up with an idea, and then as we started talking through it, we would realize, yeah, but you really need a mechanical engineer for that. You really need, someone who's skilled in a different domain for that. And certainly it's possible with the right amount of funding to go out and get those people. But if you're kind of operating on this, limited bootstrapped budget, it just isn't really feasible. So I think two of the things that became really important for us were, one, how can we use the talents we already have? And then two, how can we be cost efficient with whatever idea we pursue? So my brother's background is software development. So he had kind of this natural fit in terms of if we wanted to develop a software product, whereas my background, I had kind of the analytics side from doing research for years, and then I had training in communication and marketing, so I was pretty comfortable with interacting with different people in terms of talking about our business, seeking funding, etc. So I think we were able to use those two skills and to say, okay, we have what we need to create this mobile app that will bring people a new way to experience their cities. And then I think as we looked into it further, it also seemed relatively cost effective. I mean, there's a lot of sweat equity in it, but not necessarily a huge amount of overhead because we were able to rely on those skills we had ourselves. So I think really using those two things, that was how we took this pool of ideas and really narrowed it down to here's what we're going to focus on for InnoQuests and here's how we're going to make it happen.
That's great. So it is really amazing, Ashley, how you had the roles who are responsible to implement those ideas. You categorize those roles like mechanical engineers. You identified the talents, which is really important to make the idea into life. So that is really amazing. Identification of talents, and then you make that pool of ideas, distilled it, and made it into a concise and precise one. So that is really a key part here. So here we can apply the logical rules like how we can structure it. We have so many terminologies here, like the roles associated, and how do you collect those pool of ideas and distilled it, and then how do you identify the talents which you want to make that idea into what do you say, the product or the outcome. So this three things plays a key role, and I think these are the terminologies which will be involved in the inference engine logical rules. So it's really great, and it's really a great value addition. As always, you are a best value adder of AI.
Thank you.
So yeah, so we'll move on to the next section, that is about integrate. So we already spoke about this in the ideation, but we'll elaborate more on that. Integration is like we consciously or subconsciously we integrate so many skills, and this is really mapped to our AI system, which is about knowledge acquisition and learning module. So here, what does it do? It collects lots of data and then process it with the inference engine and with the knowledge base experiences. So we already have formulated the core parts in the knowledge base based on the curiosity, exposure, and the tons of skill which has to be involved from the blending of academic and entrepreneurship. And we saw how inference engine has applied logical rules and formulated the three core questions, like the structure, like the roles involved, the talent identification, and how to distill the pool of ideas. Now we are going to see about the third section, that is about the knowledge acquisition and learning module, which really uses the process from the knowledge base as well as from the inference engine. So this integration plays a vital role. And she's already a blender of academic and entrepreneurship. If you haven't watched her post, you have to in the hashtag academic rebel, where you have the blending of academia and entrepreneurship. So this is easy for you to integrate and tell us your experience.
Thank you. This is probably one of my favorite parts to talk about, because I think on the surface of it, when we started, I think people kind of thought, okay, she spent all of these years in academia researching organ donation, and now she says she's going to make a mobile app. Like, okay, how's that going to happen? But I think actually there's so much to build on, right? So, for example, like a huge part of my academic life, really my PhD program, was learning how to do research, right? So how do you formulate an appropriate question? How do you find the right people to participate in your research? How do you analyze that data and make a conclusion? And so I was doing that in the context of generally organ and tissue donation, but it's a pretty easy transition to say, I can take that same skill set and do market research pertaining to a mobile app, right? Like I can create a survey where I can get feedback from our users and determine if our system looks the way they want it to and feels the way that they think it should feel. So that was one really good example. Another one, for example, would be kind of earlier in my career, I spent a lot of time doing grant writing, so seeking federal funding for different projects related to generally training organ procurement coordinators to speak with families about organ donation. And so again, it seems like that's really far removed. Like you have this work with organ donation over here, and you have this other work over here with a mobile app. And so at first, I think they just seem like worlds apart. But again, I think you have to look at what are the foundational skills underneath that, right? So in writing a grant, I learned how to find the right research. I learned how to shape an argument. I learned how to manage a budget. And those are all things that pretty quickly translate over to the entrepreneur process, right? I mean, we've been looking lately at some small business grants. And so I feel like, hey, I've already done this. Like, I've written for NIH, I can write for another agency. I've managed a budget for a national project in terms of training coordinators. I can manage a company budget. And so I think a lot of it was really kind of focusing in on what do I already have and how can I use it? And it's a learning process, right? I mean, like, I think one thing that is beneficial maybe is that I'm not really scared to tackle something new. But I also think, I guess I always kind of feel like, well, sure, I can learn anything if I have enough time, right? And so I think sometimes I have to kind of rein in, like, where should my efforts be focused? And I do think that's another place where kind of coming out of this PhD mindset helped, because you really learn, I know well from your own work, you're faced with masses and masses of literature, and you need to really concisely focus in on what are the main points that I need to use to drive my research agenda, my business forward. And so that was another thing that I found really effective to do, or a nice skill that was transferable between both worlds.
Great, great. Oh my God, we have so many points. I couldn't write it down all the points. So yeah. So here we saw like integration, like from you told about the organ donation in that field, and then about the research field, and you told about the secondary research which we do, like literature survey, where we collect massive amount of secondary data and then concise it and then bring some novelty into our ideation process. So yeah, that is really good. And the best part which I like is we have to see what we already have and then how we can use it. And you said it's a learning process, absolutely. And all these parts of AI has updations regular basis, so it updates from the knowledge, I mean from the domain experts periodically. So even when domain experts learn, they tell me some new knowledge and then again I feed it. So like it's a learning process continuously, we can't stop it. We don't have like standardized, this is the base model, we don't have like that. It's updated on regular basis, and you touched upon that also very beautifully. And I love this part, like knowledge acquisition and learning module. We have like how she integrated the various skills. And as I've already told, she is already a great blender of academic and entrepreneurship. So we have like how she has transferred her skills from academic to entrepreneurship, and then how the important part is what resources we already have and how we are going to apply these resources so that it is useful and constructive to everybody. And then we saw like it is a learning process which is absolutely an updation process of all the parts of AI. So let's move on to the next one, that is instigate. This is one of my favorite part, which is like we get feedbacks and we get errors, which everyone will be scared of that, because everybody wants that perfect system at the end of the day, because they don't like the errors to be in the system. But errors and the feedbacks, constructive feedbacks, dive us back into the ideation process and then optimize its system automatically. And before that, we have to tell like Mr. Dave, he has told like perfect combinations of skills, energy, and interest. Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet and kind. And so yeah, we'll move on to that next stage, that is instigate. So how we will take up the feedbacks and mistakes. But what is your instigation? It's all about you. Like, how is your experience of instigate? How do you go back again to the ideation, which is really frustrating, because we would have thought this is a robust system which we have developed. And going back again to the ideation process and then optimizing it, sometimes it's really frustrating. So, how did you handle that, and how did you do it periodically? Those optimization process. You can even tell it about the InnoQuest app. How did you optimize it on the regular basis? And on day to day, our needs changes. Like today, if I'm happy with this live stream, maybe this is not the case after a few days. Many other new platforms or new what you can say new things come up, and we will stick on to that. So it is not the same always, and those optimization plays a vital role. How do you handle those instead? Tell us your experience. Let us explore on that area.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of share a couple examples from InnoQuests. So with our mobile app, right, it's all set in a physical city. So our first game is in Rochester. And so that means players have to physically go down to the city, buy their ticket, and then they're immersed in this story, right? And so they get video, they get case files, and those clues are leading them from physical location to physical location within the city. So like a perfect example is this past weekend, we were going to go do our final walkthrough for this game, right? Like we thought, okay, we're finally ready to beta test, like we're so close. And we go downtown and we start walking through, and there was this big street mural that we wanted people to look at as part of the game. Like they had to use that in order to decipher one of the clues in the story. And so we get downtown and we look, and now all of a sudden there's literally a restaurant built over top of this place where they were supposed to be looking. So you can imagine, like, now there's this huge hole in the middle of our story, right? Like, it's like we directed you to go to this location, and all of a sudden what we need you to look at isn't there anymore. So, I mean, it's a perfect example of having to go back to the ideation stage, because it was really about, okay, well, how can we take all of the other elements we have in our story and restructure them in a way that's going to work for the user? Like, we're not going to be able to send them there anymore. Can we send them somewhere else and give them a new puzzle? Can we keep our story consistent? Like, what is the best way to handle that error, so to speak? The other way I think it comes into play is just thinking about the physical platform itself. So, you know, I talked earlier about how one of the things that we were worried about was cost efficiency, right? And so my brother and I will routinely talk about, you know, how much money do we need to be investing in servers and things like that. So initially, when I created the story for our first game, I created everything as video. So it was all like, you know, after every puzzle, you would get another pop-up of this character who would talk to you and walk you through the next step of your story. And so when my brother and I sat down then to talk about that, he kind of said, whoa, like sending video back and forth to users gets super expensive super quickly. And so again, it was like another error. Like here I was like ready with our system, and it was like, no, that's not going to work. But I think what's fun about it, and I think this is where you and I are really similar, is that when you face those challenges, it's really just an opportunity for more creativity. You know, I mean, it's okay, how do I change the story? How do I change the way I'm delivering the story? So like part of what we did in that later situation was, instead of using just video, now there's some video, but there's also some audio files. There's also some static assets. So you get like pictures of different things in the game. So it's about how can we still keep the user immersed in the story, but also how can we kind of on the back end limit our costs in terms of what we're doing. Are Martin and Pia here? Hi.
Hi, Martin, and hi, Pia. Almost missed. No, not at all, Martin. You can watch replay. Okay, yeah, that is really amazing. And you brought an important evaluation metric, that is the cost estimation, because it plays a very vital role when we develop a system and then we have to go back to the ideation stage. Even that is a big factor in it, and how you mapped it, the front end and the back end, like the storytelling and the back end, how you have to improve the cost and stuffs like that. So it was really amazing, like the problems which you identified, and then you went back to the ideation stage. So that plays a key role. How we have to do a lot of field work when we have to identify the problem, and then the demonstration on our side is really important before we do the actual implementation. So the instigate part is like an user interface, like we will be having feedbacks and we have to improve it. And you brought an important factor, that is cost estimation, because I always tell that AI requires quantification, and when it comes to quantification, cost estimation plays a vital role. And there are so many models for doing cost estimation in AI models, and those we can apply, and we can come to a conclusion whether this iteration was better, or we have to update furthermore the knowledge from the domain expert, or there should be some threshold value in the cost estimation. You had any threshold value, like this is efficient, or like this is not efficient? Like how did you come across, Ashley, like about the cost? How did you come across the cost efficiency in your process?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it's still a work in progress, because I think you hit on something so important there, where you talked about kind of these different iterations and these different models. And so it's definitely something where we're continuing to test the system and figure out kind of what is the optimal combination of resources that we need on the back end to manage what we want to put out on the front end. And so I think we'll be able to do or to get a better grasp on that once we do some beta testing. So I think a lot of it will be actually letting people go out and play the game and seeing, okay, what's the size of the resources being delivered each time we have a user? And then, like you said, there are all these great models, and really sitting down and estimating, okay, well, how many users do we think we're going to have in a given period of time? And then how should we price our product as a result?
Yeah, great. So we had the parameters like the number of users, very good parameters to take into consideration. So yeah, again, as I've told, like quantification plays a vital role. The number of parameters here plays a vital role. So we should have some scaling here, like how many users, and then we have to make some cost estimation, and then again we have to move to the ideation process and optimize it from the knowledge extraction again from the domain expert. Awesome, very good, Ashley. I really loved this. The way you bought it, it was really clear and distinct as your post. It's very clear and distinct, and you bought it very. It's very like easy to understand, and I always like the simplified version. That's why I always make a simplified version of a complicated one. So you made it very beautifully. So yeah,
That
yeah.
thank you for that. But also, I mean, the credit goes to you, because you made it so easy to fit it within that framework. Like when we sat down for our drafting session yesterday, you just had everything so clearly specified. And so it was so easy for me to say, okay, here's how we're going to apply it at each stage. So thank you for setting up such an awesome structure for us to work with.
Wow, thank you so much. You're so kind. And here we have Martin. Definitely, I have to check the replacement for what I missed. Oh, so sweet. And then may have missed this info, but please allow me to ask Ashley Fico, do you have a rollout date?
Not a specific date yet. So it's looking like probably late summer, early fall. So we should be able to beta test within the next couple of weeks here. And then assuming hopefully that goes pretty smoothly, then we'll push it through the App Store and go from there.
So yeah, so I think I'll just quickly have a review of what we saw today. So like we saw about the 5 I's of AI, like ideation, invest and incorporate, integrate and instigate. Each is mapped to the AI core parts. So ideate is mapped to the knowledge base. Here she brought up beautiful points like curiosity, exposure, tons of skill, how she has incorporated, and the questions which she formulated, the classes which she had on Sunday fun day. So those were the core parts of the knowledge base. These are the experiences we got it from our domain expert. And then on the invest and incorporate, which is mapped to the inference engine. The inference engine does the interpretation to the knowledge which is residing in the knowledge base. So the interpretation is done through logical rules, and here we have certain logical rules, like we have a structure which she has given us, like the roles which she formulated, like mechanical engineer or like software engineer, who wants to be to make that idea into a real one. And the talents, identification of talents plays a key role, and how she had made a distillation process of pool of idea into a concise and precise one. All these forms a structure and terminology for inference engine rules. And then we saw the third part, which is integration, and that's her best part because she's already a blender of academia and entrepreneurship. And then there she told about various career transition and her skills which she has earned through that health related stuff which she has worked, like organ donations, and then about the research, grant writing, and about the best part which she told, like what do we have already and how we can apply it. So this plays a key rule for the knowledge acquisition and learning module. And then she told, like it is a continuous learning process. Yes, the whole system has to be updated again and again to get a robust model finally. And then we had a instigate, where it's about the feedback and the mistakes correction, where she told the important evaluation metrics, because AI is always about quantification, and it's about the cost efficiency, which she cited out very beautifully. And cost estimation plays a vital role, and we have several cost estimation models which can be incorporated into AI systems. And she told how the front end and at the back end, how she has been formulating like storytelling at the front end, and the back end the cost efficiency, and the important parameters like users, the number of users has to be considered. So these are the base model for any people who wanted to do a blending of academia and entrepreneurship. She has given us a base model for the AI system. And very awesome. Thank you, Ashley, for this base model which you have given us.
Thank you.
Yeah, Martin has another question for both of you. What if you have to change primary features? Do you start from the beginning or from incorporating the changes only? You're
I mean,
answering? Yeah.
my perspective would be you're incorporating the changes. But I mean, I do think it goes back to that iteration, and sometimes those changes can be pretty drastic, right? So, I mean, I think if you hit a big error later in the process, you might be going back to ideation and really having to broaden your horizon in terms of what's going into your knowledge base. Is that how you would view it from your side?
Yeah, like it differs for, I think, a system, but we cannot fix this is the primary features. It's always based on the outcome of the first iteration. If it's good, the accuracy is good, maybe we can fix that as primary features, and then we can lay it up any secondary features if you want. But initially, if our iteration result is not that very good, then we have to change the primary features, and that is really drastic actually. We have to change the primary features. But the one thing is, every iteration gives us some learning. So knowing that this is not working is also an outcome, which is also has to be taken into consideration. So that is also a learning. After an iteration, I know, oh, this is not working. So this is also recorded, which is also a result. Actually, it's not a failure.
Right.
So, Michael here, Ashley, thank you for driving home the fact that those in academia have the skills to be great entrepreneurs. It's a myth that those who teach can't do. Also, the breakdown on how you came up with the app development process, very informative.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow, that's deep unnecessity, barely kept up. Need two assistants to explain what you just said and an interview.
Martin.
Oh my god. I thought I bought it in a simplified way.
You did. You did great.
Thanks for the great answers, both. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Martin, for joining us and giving us insights and beautiful questions. And Michael always is inspiring us and giving us beautiful insights and questions. And it's really awesome here. So, yeah, we are with the final thing about the questions.
Mhm.
So I have 10 generalized questions which will be asked to all the guests, and then we have to schedule like a group discussion on some episode while everybody is free. So we'll schedule that soon. In this 10 generalized question, this has been collected mostly from the person who doesn't know AI. It's mostly from my family members because they're accessible for me. And then these questions can give us like idea about AI, the myths. It can demystify the myths about AI. So, what aspect of human intelligence fascinates you?
I would say creativity. Like I love, that people see things different from one another, and I love that people can take something complex and turn it into something simple, and someone can look at one thing and think of a completely different use for it. So that to me, I think, is the really exciting part of intelligence.
Wow, super. So, which part of human intelligence should be or should not be incorporated into AI?
Whoa. I think I would say it would be important to consider practical intelligence with AI, right? And this is something that I really respect in your work, because you're doing this stuff that has so much real world implication. And I think that's really important to think about, what are these different systems being built for and how can they be used?
Great, great. So, if you have a chance to choose an AI robot model to be a part of your work, so it to help you, in which part of your work will you put that AI robot model?
Ooh. It's probably because I just finished a summer course, but I'm going to say AI and grading. I mean, I might be getting myself out of a job here, but I feel like, man, that would not be a bad thing to have.
Okay, so this is a myth actually. Will AI replace humans? And will it lead to unemployment or will it lead to new employments?
I think there definitely could be growing pains, right? Like, I think if you look at kind of big transitions over history, right? Like, you look at moving from, say, agriculture to manufacturing, like, I'm sure there were huge changes for many families, but then society adapts and moves with it. So I think that any growth of AI will be accompanied by that same shift. Like, I think there could be perhaps a hard time initially as people feel like, oh, wow, what's this transition? What's it all about? But then I think you're going to see a shift to, okay, well, then what role do people play in this new system? And so it will just be about figuring out what's the right fit to make that work.
Wow, that's great answer. I liked it. And is it necessary or is it good to enhance the business or any business by including an AI as one of the strategy in business? Should it be
Hmm.
necessary to include AI as one of the strategy in business?
I think it's definitely something that should be considered. Um, I don't know if I would I don't know if I'd go so far as to say essential, because I feel like maybe it depends on the business and what they're trying to achieve. But I think certainly it's important, and we're learning more and more every day. And so I think to overlook that would be a mistake.
Ah, yes. So, can AI be a friend or enemy?
I think it probably depends on the humans behind it. I think I've heard you say this before in your posts, that it really depends on the intent of the person who creates that system. And so I think you can have it do amazing things, or I think you can have someone create it who doesn't have the best intentions, and that could be harmful.
Okay. So, do you think AI can bring equity and usability and feasibility without any economic status? That is, AI can be accessible to anybody without any problem with the economic status.
Hmm. Um, yeah, that's interesting, because if you think about like other technologies, right? Like we could even think back to like, okay, the first computers, right? Like only a few people had them. And then
Hmm.
it was like now most of us are walking around like with little computers in our pocket in the form of a cell phone. And even like it kind of struck me, I was doing some research on different health interventions, and they were talking about how some communities are actually, I think the term they use is mobile dependent, where like they really don't have great infrastructure in terms of like laptops, desktops, but almost everyone has a mobile phone. And so I suspect that it'll be like anything else, where as things are developed, eventually the cost will start to be reduced and you'll see more access. But initially, I think there will still be maybe some disparities.
Hmm. You really brought out the pros and cons beautifully. And do you think AI is essential or necessary in today's world?
I think it's important. Like, I think it definitely it's going to weigh on so many aspects of society. Um, and so I think we have to be aware of it, and we have to be reflective about what it is and what it can do and what are the potential risks of it. I mean, I think from my perspective, and I think this reflects your own post, you can correct me if it doesn't, but I think so much of it is based on who's creating the system, right? And we know humans are biased. And so I think we have to be careful in terms of what we're creating, right? Like I was thinking about this just in terms of machine learning, in terms of like algorithms, right? Like on one hand, you have a website like Pinterest. And if I go on Pinterest and I pin that I like a cheesecake, it's going to keep feeding me more cheesecakes, right? Shout out to Golden Girls, Michael. So then that's not dangerous, right? Like,
Yeah.
great, I'm at home, I'm getting more cheesecake recipes. On the other side of that, though, I think you can think about things like, if people are posting like particular, let's say like there's some polarizing issue, and people are posting stuff on side A of the issue, and you like that, you're going to keep getting more of that, right? And so humans have this confirmation bias where then we start to feel like, okay, I am seeking more and more of the same information, and it's reinforcing my initial belief. And I think that can tend to pull us further and further apart. So, kind of going back to the initial question, I think that's the concern, that what's going in is going to impact what comes out.
Wow, brilliant answer with beautiful illustrations. Thank you, Ashley. And then, what is a user friendly feature you would like to have in AI?
Hmm. I'm going to totally steal Michael's answer from episode 1. And he said immersion, and I am going to say immersion. Not only because, our app deals with immersive technology, but also because I really do think there's a shift happening where people are more and more interested in experience. And so I think there's going to be more and more focus on ease of use and immersiveness in whatever we're exploring.
Okay. So, the final question. So, do you think the evolution factor of human intelligence will cease after the introduction of AI?
No, I don't think it can. I mean, I think it's we just don't know what questions we'll be asking. I think it'll be like any other field where, we have this massive body of literature, and we look through it and we try to find a unique question, and we ask that question and look for answers. And then, oops, oh, the puppy's growling. And then as a result, we ask more questions. So in other words, this initial deficit just produces more questions that are asked and produces more knowledge to be sought. You froze on me, I think.
Yeah, I had a network issue. I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Is it all
I
right now?
rambled. I got distracted by the fact that Martin asked, is there such a thing as too much cheesecake? The answer is no, there definitely is not. You can always have.
I'm sorry for the interpretation.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't listen to the final answer. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. I probably rambled and got really off track. So let me try it again. So the question, right, was, will human intelligence stop developing with the introduction of AI? And
Yeah.
so
No, we'll stop. Right? Yeah.
we'll stop.
Everything should,
Okay. My thought would be no, because there's just going to be new questions to ask. So similar to how you and I go and consume literature and then ask a question and do a research study, and then that gives us a new knowledge base to build on. I think that same thing will continue to happen in the context of AI. It'll just be, we have a different base of knowledge and we ask new questions that help us move forward.
good. Yeah. So that's all about the questions. Yeah, we covered up everything. I think I'll go through. You saw the comment section when I was like off.
I did, yep.
Yeah. So I think Priya told love the energy between these two smart go-getters, role models. I will go. So thank you so much, Priya. You're so kind. And we have Martin. You saw this already? Oh, so cute. I expected this at the start of the show, Ashley.
There were some references in the comments, and I thought, why not end on a happy note?
So Martin, like the wrap up of her process earlier was what was very deep. I got it, but barely was hanging on. But you did explain it well. Deficiencies on this side. Yeah. So AI in grading. No more late night grading sessions.
Right? It does sound nice.
AI is what is programmed to be. Yes. The failures, shortcomings, dangers, and benefits reflects those of human beings. You beat it. You beat me to it. Michael told us, and yeah. So, is there such a thing? Yeah, you answered this right. Cheesecake. It's a puppy growling. Here to distract. It's my superpower after all, Martin. And today was about I want to see the puppy. Believe you. Wow, amazing comment section. So interactive, and it brought some liveliness to the show. Sorry for the inconvenience. I never thought.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So thank you so much, Ashley. We finally bought up a base model for the blending of the academia and the entrepreneurs. So this will be a great base model for anybody who wants to build on it, and anybody who wants to enhance also. And before that, on each episode, I like to conclude something on AI. And today is about like one of the thing when we build AI models is we have to integrate some security protocols to it in order to make sure that our data is very secure, and some encryption process, maybe a strong encryption process can be encoded into the AI models to make sure that we don't reveal any private data, or if it is in the case of healthcare, we can have some IDs which exactly maps to the patient's data. Even IDs collapse, we should not make that collapse also should occur. So at the initial data acquisition, we have to make sure that IDs correctly map to the patient data, and we can use the IDs correctly for the encryption and the decryption process of the data. So any security protocols, if it is integrated with AI system, we can ensure secured AI systems. And that's all I want to conclude, as Ashley has really gave us a base model, and today's session was really amazing, really lively, and I love the comment section. I appreciate all of you who have joined today, from Michael, from Pia, from Mr. Dave, and I'm really happy that he has joined today. And then Martin and Lisa and Michelle. So all of us, we are like a LinkedIn family here, and it's really amazing. And thank you so much. Anything else or ending note, Ashley?
No, just thank you so much to everyone for coming out and for joining us. And thank you to you for putting together such an amazing show and structure, and for bringing us all together this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, yeah, so sorry for the inconvenience, but anyway, thank you so much.
We got it.
Michael is like, this was a great session, and thank you both. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
Martin is, this was amazing. Yeah. So yeah, we'll end up this session. Thank you so much, Ashley. Very nice.
Thank you.
Really nice. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Take care.
Yeah, take care. Bye. Have a great day. All.